When someone's thinking of the cream of the crop of the watchmaking industry, Switzerland is the first nation to come to mind. This reputation has not been obtained by accident. Switzerland has been the hotbed of watchmaking since the beginning of wristwatches were invented. Now, one of the key indicators of whether a watch is Swiss-made is that Swiss-made stamp that you'll see at the bottom of many Swiss-made watches. What is going on, everybody? My name is Baldassarre, and in this video, we are going to be talking about that Swiss-made stamp that you see at the bottom of a lot of Swiss watches and how it is incredibly misleading. So guys, without further ado, let's jump into the video. So when someone thinks of something as Swiss-made, American-made, we usually suspect, to obtain that level of description, that the item needs to be made entirely in that nation. However, the Swiss-made stamp that we see on many watches does not actually follow that suspected standard. In fact, to obtain a Swiss-made stamp on a watch must follow just a simple legal criteria. That 60% of the manufacturing cost to assemble a watch must occur in Switzerland. When looking at this definition, we need to take a look at a couple things. One being the quality standards and the standards for having a watch be Swiss-made and for a movement to be considered Swiss-made. For a watch to be considered Swiss-made, its movement must be Swiss, its movement must be cased in Switzerland, and it is necessary for the manufacturer to carry out the final inspection in Switzerland. For a movement to be considered Swiss-made, it must have been assembled in Switzerland. The movement has also have to have been inspected by the manufacturer in Switzerland, and the components of the Swiss manufacturer must account for at least 60% of the total value. Knowing the difference between the standard for a Swiss-made watch and a Swiss-made movement is really important because you'll see two different stamps on these watches. If a watch movement is intended for export and will not be cased up in Switzerland, but it otherwise meets the criteria to be considered a Swiss movement, the watch may say Swiss movement, but it may not say Swiss-made on the watch case or dial. Another important element here is that the determining factor is not just the percentage of the parts, but the percentage of the price of the parts needed to be made in Switzerland. In other words, a watch manufacturer can basically construct a watch that is majorly just made with cheaper Chinese parts, as long as those additional parts are not more than 40% of the value. And as many of you know, based on the production costs of producing something in China compared to a European nation, especially like Switzerland, you can only imagine how different the cost will be and how you can really cut corners here. And as you would suspect, the manufacturers use a very small amount of Swiss-made components. Most often the balance wheels, the springs, along with the mainsprings and jewels for these watches are often made with Asian-made components. So this 60% number was actually not chosen at random. It corresponds to the rate used in the free trade agreement between Switzerland and the European Union. In addition, many of the smaller Swiss watch manufacturers are actually against raising the standard, since Swatch owns 70% of the market when it comes to Swiss-made movements. In other words, if they did raise the standard here, they basically would be creating an even greater monopoly than Swatch already pretty much has on the Swiss-made market when it comes to movements. So this is kind of a tough situation. I think it's really misleading, but I also really can't blame these companies because they're kind of put in a tough spot where the industry is under a lot of different changes. There's a lot of different demands for us as consumers and what we desire at cheaper prices to get more and more for it. So they have to cut corners in some ways. I think, honestly, it comes down to us to understand that that Swiss-made, what we think stamp of approval is really not what it's made out to be. So guys, what do you think of this? Do you think this is an awful act that the Swiss watchmaking industry is performing on us as consumers, or do you think it's fair play and do you think it's really on us to determine and just know that this is actually happening and is the case? So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like it, be sure to subscribe, also hit that bell icon so you know when I release future content. And until next time guys, be well, and I will see you all very soon.